Hi, everyone. It's January 4th, 2024. Happy New Year to everyone from the Backdrop community. My name is Nate Lampton. I'm Quick Sketch on the internet. I'm core committer and technical lead for the Backdrop CMS project. This meeting is one that we hold almost every week to get together to talk about technical issues that we are tackling inside of the Backdrop project. This week we've got some news about the 127 release that's just around the corner, and we'll be talking about the state of things and kind of what issues and things we've got to tackle before the release on January 15th. Let's do some introductions of the people present, though. We've got a smallish group today, still kind of the holidays. Let's start with Luke, and then we'll go to Tim.
Hi, I'm Luke McCormick in San Ramon, California. I'm a web project manager, and you can find me at Sellear in various platforms.
Thanks, Luke. Tim, and then Irina.
I'm Tim Erickson, St. Paul Tim on the internet in Deerwood, Minnesota. And that's really all I have today.
Thanks, Tim. And Irina, if you're available to introduce yourself.
Hi, yes, Irina Zaks, web developer, site builder. I am here today to talk about bugs found in D2B Migrate module. There was a lot of things that were committed in December as a special gift as a special New Year's gift to make migrations over Drupal 7 easier. And I hope to have a demo ready for the site that migrates really nicely, but also it's important to provide information, provide ways for people who are, early adopters and using the module for migrations to say, oh, this doesn't work. So we can figure out whether it's a problem with, whether it's generic problem with D2B migrations, Drupal to Backdrop migrations, because D2B module itself is just the UI to import database and run, make things a little easier. It combines installing modules and importing database. Most of the bugs that we see when people begin using the module don't come from D2B module, they come from actual migration. And solving, it's not, first of all, it's not clear whether this issues needs to be filed against D2B or Nate, that would be a question for you, which module is it core that's responsible for migration or another module? And then the second thing is, I think that even though these bugs are coming from D2B, they will make huge impact on supporting actual migrations. So Happy New Year!
Just putting this into the agenda. Excellent. Thanks, Irina. Okay. Let's see. News this week. I don't think we have any major news items. There aren't any new contrib projects or contributors this week. Holidays are a little slow, it seems. The biggest thing, of course, is that we're preparing for the 127 release. So it comes out here in 11 days. That'll be not this Monday, but the following one on the 15th. Let's see, news about kind of where, let's go through 127 first, just kind of where it stands, and then we can get into the other topics, because I don't think the 127 update will take terribly long. So the big news, of course, is that CKEditor 5 is part of Backdrop 127. We've been working through and getting some of the follow-up issues to CKEditor 5 completed, including updating the telemetry that lets us distinguish between CKEditor 4 and 5. CKEditor 5 is now enabled out of the box. We updated the status report message for CKEditor 5. We did some reworking of CKEditor 4 to clearly mark it as deprecated. And there's only one CKEditor 5 issue currently open right now. It is issue 6351, and that there's an issue where if CKEditor is used inside of a dialog and that opens another dialog, that it doesn't open the sub dialog, which can happen when if you're editing a block, for example, you've got the rich text editor inside of the layout UI, the edit block interface is inside of a dialog, and then you want to add a link inside of that block's text area, then it opens a second dialog. And that issue, 6351, fixes a problem that we're seeing there. Indigo Zell points out that this may be actually a problem in CKEditor 4 as well. At least it was reported in CKEditor 4 for Drupal. So it's possible this may be an existing bug that we just haven't addressed previously. But it's nice that 6351 fixes it for CKEditor 5, so we'll have that fixed going forward. Let's see, two other issues that got kind of completed at the last minute. Issue 214, remove IE-specific code and libraries. It's finally closed. Three-digit issue number. We discussed removing Internet Explorer support. Initially, it was IE8 support, like, a long time ago, 5, 7, 8 years ago. But we never did remove anything specific to IE up until this release. And so now that Internet Explorer, all versions are completely dead, that made it so that we could remove all of the Internet Explorer support, which right now there's still some things like the Bootstrap grid system that we're using has some IE support in it, but issue 214 removed the HTML5 shim, which was used for Internet Explorer 8, and the ability to use conditional comments, which were only supported in Internet Explorer I think 5 through 10. But since all versions of IE are dead and conditional comments no longer have any effect for any browser, we now what do we do? If you specify pound browsers in an attached element, it still accepts it there, but it just silently kind of doesn't acknowledge it, just ignores it. But we had to keep support in there because if there are existing themes and sites out there that used to use conditional comments to output IE-specific style sheets, we couldn't just start outputting the IE style sheets onto all pages, because that would cause other kinds of breakage if IE-specific style sheets started showing up on non-IE browsers. So the key is still there, but only for the purposes of suppressing the output. So we still acknowledge that browsers is set, but then we just kind of throw away the style sheet that comes in if it's set to be an IE only specific style sheet. Let's see, and then one tiny small little feature, issue 6264, make the mobile toggle text configurable. This is a tiny little feature that makes it so that the little hamburger menu that's shown on mobile, you can now change the label that is shown instead of it being hard-coded to just say menu. You can now make it say other things. So those two issues kind of slid in the last week before feature freeze. So it was great to get those two things completed. One thing that didn't make it, Tim noted before we started the recording, was swappable config. That issue still looking really great, but we couldn't quite get test coverage working on that pull request. We have some. We've definitely moved forward on that issue quite a lot. I think Laren wants to possibly advocate for it being in 128, which would be great. But that's fine. 127 is still going to be a great release with the all new CKEditor 5 module. That should be exciting for a lot of sites. There's also one issue I think that still has a good chance of getting in before release. That's issue 5090, which is introducing the details element and then using it on more, anywhere there's a more/less toggle throughout core. That's Gregory's issue, Clonos's issue, but we haven't seen any updates on it as of late. But it's possible that that can still get in because it's a user experience issue. We'll see if there's any will to move that one forward before the release. And welcome, Herb, to the meeting. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Since I've got you called out, Joan, could you do a little introduction of yourself? And then if you've got any questions or topics for today, you can just list those as well.
Sure. Herb Van den Duel. Yeah. Core committer. Yeah, the only one thing that's on mind is probably missed the mark on this release, but could either be in the bug fix or the next major release, minor release. The one that has to do with that new hook for the field schema.
Yeah, let's see. That issue, hook field schema alter, issue 6208. Yeah, it's RTBC. That's great. But I think it's just in the bug fix milestone, right? Oh, I see you just moved it into the bug fix milestone. Yeah, I think because this is a cross port from Drupal, I think anytime this is the way I rationalize it. Anytime there's a missing feature from Drupal that isn't in Backdrop, that means sites upgrading from Drupal 7 to Backdrop would experience a bug because something that used to work stopped working. And so a missing API from Backdrop that Drupal has is a bug. And so that means that we can get it in at any time, and it's not like pinned to be feature release specific.
Yeah, I think that works for a lot of cases, unless it's a major. Well, even then, if it's major, it's still breaking something if we don't include it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, excellent. So add hook field schema alter. Yeah, it looks like RG Piano marked to RTBC, which is great. Cool. Yeah, it's also funny, this issue was held up a little bit by benchmarking. Looks like Laren did some benchmarks, which is appreciated. I probably shouldn't get into this particular topic, but too much at least. But man, every time I use my Drupal sites these days, it's just like they're so incredibly slow. And so I guess where I'm headed with that is I was like, well, we're still going to be a heck of a lot faster than Drupal. And this is an issue of like it's like 400 milliseconds is like or 4,000 milliseconds is 400 milliseconds is like the difference I think that we're seeing, and only in a cache clear situation. So it's not an issue.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Any other topics, Herb?
Have you discussed any CK editor bugs or?
Yeah, the only bug that we know of right now that there's an open issue for is issue 6351, which is currently open. IndigoZilla ported something from Drupal that fixes an issue where CK editor is inside of a dialog. It can't open a sub-dialog, but that pull request currently needs review, but it's in use by other projects, and so I think that it's probably going to be the solution that we go with. Do you have any others that you know of that we haven't reported?
No, I guess there's the one that I guess we decided it can be fixed afterwards. The one with linking images.
Oh, yes. Yeah, there's an issue where if you can link an image, that works fine. But if you have an image that has a caption and you add a link to the image, the link ends up also applied to the caption. Yep, that issue still exists. Still, we believe an upstream issue with CKEditor rather than something that's in image module, or sorry, inside of CKEditor module. Maybe it's actually not clear where the problem's coming from. For whatever reason, the same problem also exists inside of Drupal 10 and 11, and there's a sister issue over there. We're hoping someone will be able to figure that issue out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just also related to CKEditor, I've been tracking, I've joined the CKEditor 5 Slack group, and I also keep an eye on the Drupal 11 CKEditor 5 issue queue just to see what kinds of issues we could also be facing, because problems Drupal have, we also have a pretty good chance of facing. And by and large, the complaints are they're misunderstandings about the way that CKEditor 5 works. I think that CKEditor 5 not using an iframe and having the admin styles apply to the contents of the editor throws an awful lot of people for a loop. And also just the way that classes are applied, like the use of the styles dropdown is a real big stumbling block for a lot of people. That in CKEditor 4, the styles dropdown, you could select any bit of text and you could select something from the styles dropdown, and it would both change the tag and apply a class at the same time. And in CKEditor 5, you first need to make sure that something is like an H3, for example, before you can apply an H3 style class to it. And in CKEditor 4, you could just select text, select small heading from the list, and it would both make it an H3 and apply a class at the same time. So there's just some behavioral differences that have made it so that longtime users of CKEditor 4 are kind of stumbling over and over again on these kind of same problems. It seems like it's kind of remarkable how often the same question just gets asked repeatedly around one of those two problems. Okay, anyway, just generally, I think we're looking really great with CKEditor 5. I think that we're in a much better spot than Drupal was when it first introduced CKEditor back when it was a year and a half ago. A lot less of a mature project than it is now. All right. Yeah, so we don't really have a whole lot of topics for today. The next couple of weeks, we'll continue to do bug fix issues. There's 7 or so RTBC issues. We're going to continue merging in those bug fix issues. The only kind of last minute feature that we have is that details element 1, issue 5090, that could possibly still get in as a new feature. But that's kind of it for the 127 update. I think we had a couple of other topics that people wanted to bring up. First of all, Tim, you had some issue or question about refreshing pull requests. What did you want to discuss there?
I'll try to keep this just simple. So one of the things that I run into a lot when I'm going back and looking for issues that are needs testing or close to finished is that there's a lot of PRs out there that are old enough that the sandbox is broken, and also apparently the way we're doing things now, you need to rebasing has become more sensitive, right? That the PRs become out of date. It seems like much quicker. I don't fully understand why, but we don't need to get into the why. The more the question is how. So if you could give me a really quick tip, sort of in how you do it. I have basically been just cutting and pasting, creating new PRs and cutting and pasting the code. I know that there are rebase commands in Get. Do they generally work for these kinds of things? Is that what I should be doing? Or?
Well, the easiest thing to do is to use the button inside of the GitHub UI. Have you been using that?
Well, okay. I guess part of the problem might be that these aren't my PRs. So if it was like, oftentimes I'm rebasing someone else's PR. If it were my PR, I could just, hit that rebase button. And I have been using that for those kinds of scenarios. But if it's someone else's, so maybe I can't use the rebase command anyways. I don't know. What is there a strategy other than? I mean, sometimes these people aren't necessarily around or active. I could do I don't know. Could I do a PR on their PR? Is that the best way to do it? Or
Yeah. Okay. So you're right that unless you are a maintainer or it's your pull request, the button to update with main is not in the UI. So yeah, that's the problem. If the person is still around and still like working on the issue, making a pull request against the pull request, that's a good way to go. But because only they can merge that in, and you don't get the full combined result until after it's been merged into the branch, then yes, you should just make a new pull request. Specifically say that it replaces the previous pull request, and try to maintain the commit history too, if that's relevant. So that way. Although when I merge, I always squash it, and I always look at all of the contributors separately from the commit history. It's still, I don't know, I think polite to kind of keep the commits from the previous person in place in your updated pull request.
Well, how would I do that to keep their commit history?
So check out their pull request.
Okay.
And then start from there. Just add another commit to it, and then push to your fork, and then make a pull request that includes all of their commits at the beginning and then all of your commits at the end.
Okay, I guess that makes sense. Usually, I mean, to be clear, I'm usually doing these on pretty simple PRs. Usually they're 20 or 30 lines of code. It's nothing. So I have just been actually cutting and pasting, basically creating a new PR and cutting and pasting the code changes in. But sometimes the code is shifted by 20 or 30 lines, and I need to figure out where it is.
That's fine too. I think just copying and pasting the changes and then making a new pull request. Just note that it was based on the previous pull requests.
I always include a comment that I'm copying someone else's PR. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that again, like you'll have to wait for a core committer to come in and close the previous pull request, and then the focus will become on your pull request instead. Sometimes we'll leave multiple pull requests open if they're like substantially different from each other. But if your pull request is just an updated, refreshed version of the previous person's pull request, we try to, or at least I kind of try to keep only one pull request open at a time, because the may be fixed by link at the top of a GitHub issue, it's definitely better if there's only one issue there, although it does support like maybe fixed by this or this issue, which I also appreciate that it supports there having multiple solutions. But for clarity, I kind of prefer only the updated one be listed.
Okay. Well, in some cases that's not the case yet because nobody's closed the other one. So
yeah,
I'll talk to you about that later.
That's fine.
Maybe one other I hope this is a fairly quick question, and it's sort of related just in terms of me helping out in the issue queue. I noticed one of your issues there needed a change record. And I feel like I brought this up before, but I just checked and there's quite a few. We've got about 30 issues, I think, that are open saying that they need change records. And to be honest, I'm like, I know I've asked about this before because I don't know I have an intuitive idea what a change record is, but I don't know what the criteria are. I never use them. Like I never so I don't even know where to start. Like is helping with change records do you need a comprehensive understanding of the issue? Or is it something that someone like me could just read through the issue and figure it out and write a change record?
It's mixed. Sometimes it's complicated and sometimes it's not. But yes, help writing change records would be appreciated. I don't think maybe I'm mistaken, but I don't think there's that many issues that actually need a change record, because in theory, if they're a closed issue, the change record has already been written.
Oh, you know
that-
what? Maybe I just did a search on the tag, and it could be the tag exists on some closed issues, and I didn't notice that.
Yeah, there's this silly thing where, maybe not silly, but the needs change record label, there's not a separate label for has change record. And so unlike has pull request, for example, like some of our states have like a needs and then also has a has, but for change records, we don't have two separate labels. And so if it's marked needs change record and it's closed, that actually means it has a change record. There's a couple of issues that are open, like the CK editor one and the remove IE support issues. Those are two issues that are currently open, even though the code is in, but they are marked needs change record, but they're still open because they don't get closed until the change record is written.
Is anybody aware of any backdrop specific documentation on what change records are and like what's involved in creating them?
Ooh.
And I know, if you're not aware, that's fine to say that.
Yeah, well, let's look at docs.backdropcms.org. There is in the sidebar of the homepage there under the appendix/reference, there's a link for change records. It goes to docs.backdropcms.org/change-records. And this page ostensibly lists all of the API changes and breaks, even from Drupal 7, like from the time that we've forked up until present, the big major API changes there. Anyone that's an editor on the API website can create or edit additional change records, and it's just node add change record, I believe.
I would just suggest that if anybody that's experienced at this had the time to do a short blog post or something, like this is what change records are, why we use them, and how you can help, that would be useful. But I'll try to figure it out myself. That's it. We can move on.
Yeah, you know what would also be really helpful would be this change record listing. It should describe what they are, right, rather than just like having a listing. Might also, like, this view also could be improved dramatically, like to include like the version of Backdrop in which the change record applied. Like, we have that ability, but it's not. This view is really minimal.
Can I just have quick, as a core developer, do you have to refer to them much, like to remind yourself of things, or? I'm wondering what as a regular site builder, there's probably, I don't need them very often, do I? I assume mostly it's about leaving a path for core developers to understand. But
yeah, I think it's mostly for contrib developers, actually, because it's like if you have implemented a certain API and that API changes, what we don't want to have developers do is go to the original issue. Well, they can, to get a deeper understanding, but like it's like the too long didn't read version of like, here's what you need to know to actually like deal with the change that occurred, as opposed to reading the entire original issue and discussion about the different options and stuff like that. It's just listing like, here's the final result of this API change, is that you used to do this and now you do that. That's the typical expectation of a change record, is giving you a before example and an after example.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, that's it for those topics, I think. Irina, if you want to talk about D2B module and any requests or updates that you have about that, take it away.
Thank you. I probably have more requests than the other way around. I think that, so first of all, I want to thank very, very much everyone who worked on this, all during December. It is ready for Doc Willmant made lots of changes, like we discussed during Batcamp session. that it might be challenging to do the SQL part, but I think Doc Bowman have figured it out. And code is there. It hasn't been tested thoroughly. Like I did have some trouble uploading the database, but these are kind of more of the technical issues rather than general approach. So I think he worked out the general approach. I'm trying to record the demo on my local machine with new features, which are great because the two features that are ready to go are both quite important. One allows, one changes how modules are downloaded, and it's a big deal because now it is possible to, that the modules that are unchecked in the Drupal 7 site are not automatically checked on download. And that makes things much, much easier. I can do the demo now, or I hope to record it and post it this week. But then his question was like, before we can put it into next release, because people now can install the module through web UI. So we want to include this very important feature in the release. So he said, okay, I need kind of something in the issue saying these things can be included in the release. I did leave my notes there, but I'm not sure what is the next step, like what, what's the next step to make this next release happen?
I'm not sure because I haven't checked in on it recently, but I think usually if something has already been merged, it's just a matter of time, like a matter of request or urgency that another release be created. And so you could request if you wanted to make an issue saying, please make a new release. That would be one way of just politely asking, or do it over Zulip. But yeah, if it's already been merged, then the way most authors work is if it's been merged, it's ready for release. And so a release can be made at any time.
Okay, so I think I let me double check where I put a couple of modules. So there are two issues that were.
Can I just interject? I don't know, did you see my comments last night,
Yes.
Irina? I just tried the dev branch last night and it seems to be a regression. So you do not want to do a release right now.
It's
Until,
in,
but
yeah, so dev branch and 1.1. So the most recent updates are in 1.1. They're
well,
not dev branch.
yeah, I think that's what I consider the dev branch, but maybe whatever. Let me check. Maybe I used the wrong branch. I'm looking now.
Let me double check. There is what I see there, when I go to code, I can see.
The 1x-1x branch is what I used last night.
Yeah.
And it worked worse than it did than the release version did. Now that could be, maybe I did something wrong. I opened an issue. I put some comments there.
I looked at the issue and if you have time to connect, we can do a little bit more testing directly.
Sure.
But generally speaking, Nate, I just wanted to confirm that it will be helpful to create additional issues saying, please create new release. Or Zulip is better. What is better?
Well, if it's more complicated than it sounds, like Tim is saying that there's possibly an issue making a new release, it'd be better to have it be an issue. So that way it's more publicly visible if it's an issue than it is in Zulip. Zulip is great for if you want something to be done right away and it doesn't really need to be more publicly visible. You can get a quicker response sometimes.
Well, yes, I want everything to be done today. So
yeah.
we know this chant, but I will create an issue because I think it will be a little. So Tim, let me know if you want to connect later today or tomorrow. Tomorrow is fine. We can check what's going on, compare why it is happening. And I think my idea is that if new release has bugs but is better than the previous release, then we should release it. because
Sure.
this is still a kind of early development module, and we're going to have bugs there, and not just bugs, but use cases where things don't work because, like for example, login toboggan module is going to be causing trouble, no matter what, just because of the nature of the module. There are also a couple of. The interesting thing is about this particular D2B module that it creates, because it's just UI for the actual migration, the bug is not in the D2B module, but it's in the migration. So by exposing this module, we're not, we are helping to expose bugs in the core migration process. So that's kind of my approach to that. So,
The bug though that I encountered, I think, was that the migration is not running. So, and I put some screenshots. You and I can talk about it later.
yeah. So do you want to do it today or tomorrow?
Well, I mentioned to you earlier I can meet tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll get you in Slack. I have a meeting in a half hour after this, so
okay,
it would
then
have to be
tomorrow is fine. I'll just do more testing on my side, and let's dive into details tomorrow. If I can reproduce your problem, that will be helpful. And if no, we'll just do some troubleshooting together and figure it out.
Sure.
And then we can try to move forward. But yeah, I hope to bring this module to MeetCamp and to N10 this year, because I think these are audiences that are interested in making migrations, smaller migrations, simpler.
Sure.
Hopefully it will be helpful. And yeah, thank you. And Herb, I sent you the note about the feeds, my favorite module.
Oh, great. Take a look.
All right. Yeah, does anyone have any other topics they'd like to discuss? We've got a couple of minutes here before the top of the hour. No? Okay. That's kind of where we are right now for the 127 release. We're in good shape. No real critical issues before release that we know of. So I would encourage everyone. Failed to mention it. We're going to encourage everyone to use the preview release that has been created, 127.0-preview. It's available from GitHub releases, the GitHub project page, and then if you go to releases, it's marked as a pre-release. It's not available through Update Manager because it's not an official release, but it is available through GitHub to see if there's any kinds of regressions or problems that occur when you upgrade your existing sites to 127.0-preview. We've got 10 days, 11 days before the release of 127, but as of right now, we don't know of any major regressions in the new release. And honestly, new regressions, based on the issues that we have, aren't very likely, especially if you keep using CKEditor 4. And I'll reiterate again that CKEditor 4 has not been removed from 127. It's just no longer the default editor in 127. So new sites will move to, will use CKEditor 5 by default. We had some discussion about hiding CKEditor 4 so that it can't be turned on, but that turned out to be more difficult than expected. And so for 127 release, both CKEditor 4 and CKEditor 5 are still visible on the modules page. And if you want to, you can turn off 5 and go back to using 4. And existing sites will keep using 4 until you specifically turn on 5. Now, there are messages on the status report that tell you to move off of 4 if possible. It's a warning level now. But there's no technical barrier at all to people continuing to use CKEditor 4. It's just no longer supported, and so we'd like to get people moving off of it. All right. That's it then.
Quick, Nate, on that issue. I feel like if you want to go to, that's okay.
Happy New Year to everyone, and see you soon.
Happy New Year.
Actually, if you have just a minute, we could end the meeting, Nate, and then I can ask you this question.
Okay.
Be a quick,
All right.
quick one. Okay, so
All right.
go ahead and stop the video.
Okay.
Okay, bye,
Thanks so much, everybody. See